Let's talk about the JFK assassination. I get so. Let's say this first. When you put savings in gold or in Bitcoin, you're basically putting purchasing power outside of this system. So you're taking energy out of the fiat machine and putting it literally in natural money, let's say a commodity money that cannot be printed or controlled. So
value-based money is probably the best way to.
Yeah. So that is basically a vote of no confidence, right? If a government is mistreating people, then if they're printing too much money or they're abusing them in whatever way, people could sell the currency, take the gold, go to where they're treated best.
Yep.
This is a mechanism that kept government honest across time. This is what's been attacked and broken, basically. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin offers us something else. I say all that, though, to set up the JFK assassination story, because June 4th, 1963, John F. Kennedy is assassinated. And this was 3 months after he signed Executive Order 11110, where he was basically had to do with transitioning power away from the Federal Reserve and to the National Treasury. He think he was going to give the Treasury the power to issue silver certificates.
Actually, 4.51 billion of silver certificates were issued in the almost 4 full months.
Right. So, what can we say about that time in history, the JFK assassination, and what did it have to do with the corruption of money?
The first lesson is that it echoes Abraham Lincoln. Can anybody name what Lincoln did that the central banksters did not like? Come on. The slaves had nothing to do with the Civil War. And he really didn't, because we were the debt slaves. So he did the greenbacks. Right?
Which was a national currency, not a central bank currency.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So the money trust out of England hated that. And so much so that the central banks in both England and France were seriously considering invading America and backing the Confederacy. Mm-hmm. This is easily found. Nothing that I'm saying is my original thought, by the way. I'm regurgitating the information of first or secondhand folks who wrote beautiful novels and or periodicals of the time. This has no subjectivity whatsoever. So JFK echoes Abraham Lincoln, because it took, I think, almost 5 years after they assassinated Lincoln, where all of those greenbacks that were in circulation that recapitalized America, which helped him win the war against the South, were gone. You can't find them anymore. And so, same thing, because they were all sensitive, like, if JFK tries to do what Abraham Lincoln does, whoops, he did it. We can't let that happen. And similarly, it took 4 or 5 years for them to get these silver notes out of circulation after 1963.
63. So he was giving people access to honest money, and that is not good for a dishonest.
And he made a famous speech about secrecy, which was literally talking about exactly what happened.
Yeah. Okay. I'm jumping around here because we don't have a ton of time, but I want to jump to today. We just elected Donald Trump as the next president of the United States. A lot of people take this guy to be a JFK-like figure, that he's actually going to take it to the establishment and try to restore power to the people in various ways. Do you want to talk a little bit about what parallels, if any, you see between JFK and Donald Trump?
They're both womanizers. And that's a compliment, JFK and Donald. But I think Donald may. So I would argue John was maybe more courageous before than Trump. Now that Trump's had assassination attempts, I think now they're kind of equally matched historically. But I think John was a little more courageous and verbose. Like, you don't hear Donald saying "end the Fed" when he knows damn well we need to end the Fed. Like, Don's way more experienced in finance, econ, real estate financing, structured financing, derivatives. He knows exactly what's wrong, whereas John F. Kennedy more was speaking about the top down versus the bottom up.
Trump is saying end income tax, though, right? Or at least flirting with the idea.
Income tax, this is funny that you pointed out, 16th Amendment was only ratified by 5 states, not all 50. So both the IRS and the taxation of our people non-constitutional. Moreover, if I'm going to argue a moron lawyer from Harvard, when they say, "Oh, we have an amendment that says it is," well, we had to amend what the forefathers wanted. What the intention was right there in the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution, and in no founding document did they say tax the people. So it's very, very clear that on a cursory look of history, you can find that data. And that 2003, a case that has my last name on it, Sullivan v. something, that went to the Supreme Court, they literally said the 50 states didn't ratify the 16th Amendment. It is currently sitting there where we're all getting taxed out the wazoo when we actually don't have to pay it.
It's not constitutional.
Yeah. It's actually, they can't legally collect.
Yeah.
And there are certain lawyers in the country who have successfully combated this through not filing 1040. I'm not an expert at anything, but I'm not well versed enough to speak on that. But those who have combated that have actually won, and there's some precedent there.
Yeah. So Trump, RFK, some people think Trump is one of these new founding father-esque kind of individuals, that he is actually going to shake the tree and, refresh the tree of liberty and all of this stuff. Where do you sit on that spectrum? Do you think he's going to stay true to his promises? Are his promises radical enough to get things done? As you said, he's not mentioning in the Fed. So what are your views on Trump and, let's say, the next 4 to 8 years in the U.S.?
You want my subjective or objective?
You take it whatever direction you like.
So I'll start with subjective. I tend to lean towards that, that we are right to have hope. We are right to trust a process of what seems to be very talented people getting together for the public's best interests. Thankfully, there's a element of what the forefathers called disinterested. Oh, George Washington, you don't want to be president? You're president, right? Where Elon, Vivek, a lot of the people here, RFK, they don't need to do this. Donald doesn't need to do this, right? I'd rather be hanging out with Melania all day, right? I mean, geez. So that is something that we have not seen in our government system since, I think it ended with John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams. That was the last president that was disinterested. So that's unique. I think that's pretty epic historically. Objectively, until I see some train wrecking and bulldozing occur, I will err on the side that these folks aren't going to go quietly.
Yeah.
And there has to be a very, very real strategic dialogue with the American people about how this transition is going to look. Because if we're ever going to get out of it, guess what has to happen first, folks? A major fourth turning and a gigantic crash. So we all have to collectively suck it up and destroy the credit system. And I've got a version of it that I really don't want to say because I'm already on all the lists. But, well, I'll put it out there. If I were Donald, the main way to do this clean would be, and thank God we have Bitcoin, to say to the central banks of the world, because it can't just be an American phenomenon. This has to be global. And we can start here, and then we essentially lay out the playbook and the rules of engagement. Don't impose it via military anymore, but through great truth and sales process, bring everybody to the table. We honor the amount of debt that's owned by investors, and we default on the debt that's owned by central banks. Right now, it's about 9 trillion treasuries and about another 11, 12 trillion of CMBS, MBS, and ABS securities. And that can be done with the stroke of a pen. Effectively, it's not even there anyway. So it's literally like going, sorry, Jay Powell, gone. And nobody will really even know the difference because it's not actually contracting the money supply. Yeah, kind of smart, eh? And if we did that, that roughly 35, 38% of Euro, Japan, I don't know China because their books are worse than our fake books. But if you say that we've then given ourselves a reduction from 36 trillion down to maybe 25 trillion of debt, we can get to a realistic payoff by collateralizing that debt with Bitcoin. And I think that's probably the cleanest, easiest way without without really causing a multi-generational depression, which is how this is supposed to work. You can't just float infinity everything and there not be any pain for it. It's like, I'm going to do 10 kilos of coke, but I'm never going to come down off of it. Oh, you died. Right? You can't do that and not have the other side of the equation.
It's funny, but it is the analogy to a drug.
Yeah,
is very good, actually, because the printing of money is like, they literally call it stimulating the economy. It's a stimulant for the economy because you create that illusion that there's more goods than there actually are.
And they use words like elastic, flexible currency.
Yeah.
What?
But yeah, we've been on this stimulant for 50 years straight, and the whole organism is basically pathologized as a result. If you enjoyed this clip, click here for the full episode and here for more just like it. Also, like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money and subscribe to stay connected. Thank you.